Welcome, 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 you guys. Welcome to Money Making Mondays with Madam CEO. It is an honor to be back in this space. I'm not going to hold you all up. I'm going to get into the meat of things because we've got work to do. We've got a lot of important work to do, a lot of things to cover, and I am super excited to get back to the nitty gritty of all of this. Today's episode is check the board before you judge the move. Check the board before you judge the move. Like I said, welcome to Money Making Mondays with Madam CEO. And we are not here to simply chase money. We are here to question the beliefs, the systems, the traditions, our assumptions, the that have shaped our ideals around money, around family, around our faith, around business, and ultimately around our freedom. Today, I want to speak directly to us, the builders, the descendants of the American slave, the indigenous, the aboriginal, the Pan African, those who are spiritually searching, economically awakening individuals, people who know that there's something about our condition that just does not add up. Two plus two is not equaling four, it has not equaled four, and we are here to talk about restoration. We're here to talk about sovereign. We're here to talk about generational wealth. We're here to talk about returning to the Most High God. We're here to talk about rebuilding family, rebuilding and regaining our land, our history, our culture, our identity, and ultimately our power. Um, but the problem seems to be is that we cannot restore what we refuse to investigate. Of all the topics that I find most challenging for our community and individuals that I coach or that I speak to, one of the most difficult ones is that many of us are so committed to what we already believe that we judge the move before we've even looked at the board. So today's question is, who taught you to judge before you understand? Who or what taught you that that's crazy? You know, who taught you that that was legitimate or not legitimate? Who taught you what was respectable, what was believable? Who taught you what God could or could not say or do? Who taught you what wealth should look like, what family should look like, what religion should look like, what freedom should look like, what ownership looks like? Who taught you what was safe or unsafe? Ultimately, the real question, though, is have you investigated these things for yourself? Because around here, Madam CEO, the other businesses or affiliates that I work with and the things that I do, we question everything. Questioning everything has given me a level of freedom and independence and such um, a quicker way to transform my life in ways that I see other people struggle. So we question everything here because again, like I said, around here, being familiar with something, familiarity is not evidence. Just because it's something that has always been done around you or that's what you're familiar with, that does not necessarily make it true or make it something that is applicable in every situation or every circumstance, right? Tradition does not automatically mean truth. Again, just because something is a tradition does not automatically mean that it's truthful. And even beyond that, it does not mean that that tradition was put in place for your benefit or to bless you. Consensus does not automatically mean confirmation. And discomfort, I need y'all to hear me on this. Discomfort does not mean disproof. Just because something makes you uncomfortable or it's unfamiliar to you, that is not the indicator that it is wrong or incorrect. It's just new to you. And we're here to restore, right? So, again, question everything, even me. I'm looking forward to questions so that we all can learn and grow together. But we'll go to move one, right? Check the board. Check the board, people, before you judge the move. Before you judge a move you make or a move someone else is making, check the board. Our communities have spent generations being told what to do, what to believe, how to move, how to think, how, on almost every aspect of our lives, of our culture, we have been so boxed in or dictated what we should or should not do. And that puts us at a disadvantage on in some levels, but we need to recognize that so that we can move accordingly, right? So who are we? Where did we come from? What does success look like? What does intelligence look like? What does spirituality look like? What respectable employment looks like? I hear, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I hear so many debates that people have online on what men should do, what women should do, what certain communities should do, what relationships should look like. Who said that? Who taught you that? What should our families look like? What should education look like? What should wealth look like? Someone asks an unfamiliar question to us, or we're presented with something that's unfamiliar. How often do we reject it instead of saying, let me examine that? And me examining more things than many people that I'm around has put me in a winning position. And I want to continue to win myself, but win with you all as well, right? So we should say, like, well, not we should say, I'm going to give you an example of what oftentimes we say. And in the past, I was very guilty of this myself. Even now, on some level, I can find myself doing this, but I quickly can recognize it. But when you're presented with an unfamiliar question or an unfamiliar situation or something that just makes you feel uncomfortable, is your response, that's crazy. That's a conspiracy. That's not professional. That's not of God. That one, right? That's not what I was taught. That's not what Black people do. And so on and so on and so on. Exactly. Maybe what you were taught is the very thing that really deserves or requires examination. Again, many of us were products of oppressive situations, culturally, systemically, generationally. So we should question the very beliefs that were passed down to us. It should not bring automatic rejection when you find something that's unfamiliar. It should encourage you to do examination. I worry that many people push back on examination because they don't know how, or they're not familiar with it, or they doubt that they lack the wherewithal to really examine something. But this isn't a place that we want you to shy away. We want you to dig in and learn. We all have to start somewhere, because if our current thinking has already produced if how we currently believe, or or what your mama and them taught you, or who told you something was crazy or taught you to be so judgmental, if it were really working, you probably wouldn't be on this platform to begin with. You probably would have the wealth that you desire, the health that you desire, the family structure that you desire, the generational legacy that you desire. And many of us do not. So, if your current thinking had produced complete freedom, complete health, complete durable institutions, economic independence, spiritual clarity, protection of land, thriving businesses, transferable wealth, and so on and so on and so on, you wouldn't need restoration. And if you don't need restoration, you can hop off now, because I am a restorer and I am seeking places, spaces, and individuals who are looking to restore as well. So um, check the board before you knock the play, before you give all these reasons why it won't work. Check the board, see where these reactions are coming from, and why, and what questions could you present instead of obstacles or automatically canceling something out before you really explore. The next point is your first reaction may not be your own. Going back to what I just said about we are descendants of or products of oppressive environments, environments where we have been taught to just obey and not necessarily to think on our own. We have been um, uh, like this level of mastery can begin when you observe yourself. When you hear something unfamiliar, before research, before documentation, before prayer, before investigation, your mind automatically says, that can't be true. That sounds crazy. That's ridiculous. Mm-mm, that's dangerous. I ain't doing that, you know. But your mind automatically tells you why things won't work. That in and of itself, my people, my sweet, sweet brothers and sisters, that is an indication that you probably have been very oppressed when your brain instantly goes into protective mode instead of exploratory mode. You should stop and start to really analyze, where did this reaction come from? Many of us were taught how to react to ideas, how to behave in certain situations, and it was necessary. Our livelihood, our life, like the our physical bodies and the protection of our bodies and minds and so on, literally depended on that. And some could argue that even today it depends on that. However, because we were taught how to react to ideas long before we were taught how to evaluate them. And again, I would venture to say that many of us were not even taught how to evaluate and how to examine things. And that probably brings on another level of, of fear and confusion. But that matters for communities trying to recover knowledge. That is a very pivotal point, because think about it. Our history was disrupted. Our languages were disrupted. Our land relationships were disrupted. Our was disrupted. Our family structures were disrupted. Economic systems were disrupted. Spiritual practices and traditions were disrupted. Political power was disrupted. Then generations later, the descendants of those children who had all of this disruption, all of this oppressiveness, all of this forced obedience, then we have the audacity to say, and audacity not in a good way, audacity in like the audacity, to say, I already know enough. Oh, I'm not doing that. I literally have had conversations with individuals that will say, oh, no, 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 I'm very open minded, but I'll never do that. I've had friends and family members who will try to caution me about exploring other religions or diversifying how I move money or things of that nature. And they'll say, oh, yeah, 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 you can diversify, but I would never do that. So, what exactly are we restoring? I really want to ask and just put it out there, do I know this, or do I simply recognize this when you find yourself in situations like that? I'm going to repeat that again. Ask yourself, do I know this? Like, have I researched, examined, and discovered on my own something that I know something to be a fact, or do I recognize it? And I'll share this. I have a 7-year old granddaughter, and she always says she knows something. And a lot of it is that she recognizes it, right? So sometimes we'll be driving and it'll be a familiar area or something. She's like, oh, I know where I'm at. Does she really know or does she simply recognize? Because if I were to let her out of the car and say, you know what? Well, I'll meet you at the house, you know, could she get home? Perhaps, but she's more familiar with or she recognizes, like, oh, I've seen this street before, I've seen that building before, or, like, this is the Chipotle. I'm telling on myself now. This is the Chipotle that Gammy always goes to. So she recognizes it, but does she really know it? And I would caution you all, or I would challenge you all to ask yourself the same thing. Do I know this? Or do I simply recognize this? Is it something that's familiar? Because oftentimes familiar can feel true, unfamiliar feels false, but that doesn't make it true or false just because it is unfamiliar to you. Neither feeling is truly evidence. There, this is where bondage can really become mental. No one has to block information from us anymore. Information is out there. All of the things that people compliment me on, being so brilliant or so smart, or oh my gosh, you just know so much, it's in a book. I'm constantly reading and researching. When I am exposed to new information that I can feel my nervous system kind of percolates or does something different, I know that, okay, I need to research that because it triggered something in me. It is bringing something to the surface that is unfamiliar or that I should explore more. None of you all are curious anymore. Where is your curiosity? And I know that it was beaten out of our ancestors, or attempted to be beaten out of our ancestors, but we've got to get that exploratory core. We've got to go back and find that. So you rejected yourself with just because of the patterns that you've established or the patterns that were given to you for levels of protection and safety and things of that nature. The gatekeeper no longer has to stand outside of the gate. Like the gatekeeper has been uh, positioning you so that you keep yourself confined. It's almost like an invisible fence for dog owners or something. Like if they have an interaction once or twice, they won't cross a certain boundary anymore because they learn. And that is a strategic loss. It's a strategic loss for you before the real game even wins. Now, we ask on Mondays, well, I ask every day, but this is Money Making Mondays with Madam CEO. So, who benefits? Who benefits when you never investigate another economic model? Who benefits when you believe employment is your only resource for financial security? Who benefits when your family never discusses money? Who benefits when every generation has to buy the same knowledge again and again and again? Who benefits when your family's land is divided because you all didn't know to put it in a trust and you've got 50 people dealing with air rights and the chain of title is broken and someone else buys it for pennies on the dollar? Who benefits? Who benefits when our ideas are neglected? Who benefits when our business dies with the founder? The founder of the business dies and the business folds or fails right along with it. Who benefits when our spirituality is disconnected from stewardship? Who benefits? I'm not giving you the answer because, again, these are questions that you should be asking yourself. These are questions that I ask myself. And from there, we get to greater levels of understanding where we either find new answers or we reinforce the answers, should they be true or should we find them to be definitive, right? Follow the incentive. The incentive. So first we say who benefits from this. Then you want to know what's the incentive. Is it commercial? Is it institutional? Is it political, cultural, spiritual? Sometimes the beneficiary is your own ego, because your ego, sidebar, and this will be a whole nother conversation, but shadow work, a lot of you all need to work on your ego. Your ego is so, I literally fell out with a friend just because I mentioned to them, like, whoa, whoa, like your ego. I don't have an ego. And they were literally acting in their ego, but unable to recognize or identify it. Nonetheless, we'll continue on, because your ego benefits when you never have to say, I may have been wrong. Me acting on limited information, me moving off of what my mama's mama told me may have been wrong. Your ego benefits from not having to acknowledge that. So remember, do not just follow the advice, follow the incentives, including your own. Finally, the difference between proof, stop defending the piece of disagreement as disproof. So, what I mean by that is awakening can become another form of dogma. So, as you go throughout this journey and you start to question everything, you are going to discover things that were flat out lies, flat out untruths, just complete falsehoods. But I want to caution you from leaving one system where no one allowed you to question anything. I know I felt like that often as a child in church. Like it was like quite like God don't like questions. Like what's happening? I can't ask y'all anything. But to leave one environment where you're unallowed to question anything, and then to go to another environment where they have new information that they're uh, affording you or that they're discussing, but that community still does not allow you to question anything either. It's the same play, but on a different board, the same trap, the same limited restoration. I do not even want you to replace me with your ability to question and to do your own research and to do your own work, which is one of the things I have to really hammer home to many of the people that work with me. Research and investigate yourself. My job is to help you strategically. If that is not, because that is where my brilliance is, where my anointing is, and I'm very good at it. But it's still your dream, your legacy, your goals, right? So I want you to be capable of thinking, high level thinking, of comparing, of discerning, of praying, of testing, right? So that you can challenge me so I can get to the next level. Changing your mind when evidence requires it is a beautiful thing. If you search a path, if you're doing research on something and the evidence presents itself in such a way that you should create a new idea or challenge the old idea that you have, I think that's a wonderful opportunity, because sometimes you follow the evidence and it reinforces what you already believe. But either way, you are getting better, you're getting stronger, you're not being manipulated, you're not just limiting yourself from scrutiny and allowing someone to take advantage of you. Ideas we love require scrutiny too. We should question everything, question everything, right? Um, for mainstream claims, you name it, ask yourself, do I agree? Well, first, perhaps we stop asking ourselves, do I agree with something? And perhaps a better question would be more along the lines of what would I need to evaluate this situation or this question more intelligently? That changes the entire game. Now you're no longer just protecting a position, you're not protecting a thought process. You are evaluating the actual belief. What's true, what's assumed, what's repeated, what's outdated, what's incomplete. Because incomplete evidence also is a very dangerous thing as well too. I see it so often online where in certain spaces where people give 3 steps of a 12-step process and people are moving on that. I've had many people come to me asking for solutions or needing support on things, and real talk, it's like you have made these moves and used these templates, and you don't even understand the process fully. You don't know what's happening. So um the conversation, just because you talk about money, we're taught, get an education, get a job, buy a home, get insurance, retire, like those are like the things that lure us in. But where is the deeper conversation about ownership? Because ownership looks different. There are many ways that you can own properties. There are many reasons why you could own properties. Where's the conversations about business equity? you know Owning a business or buying a business, there's multiple levels to that. Family governance, going back to one of the points I mentioned before, there's how who benefits when your family doesn't discuss money with one another, when you don't discuss financial strategies and things of that nature with your immediate family, your extended family. How do we protect land? How should we title land? How do we know what a chain of title is and things of that nature when we're just taught to buy a house, but we don't really understand it? What is intellectual property and how much of it have you left on the table because you're starting businesses, you're working, you're doing all of these things, but you don't realize that many of these things are layered, and it's so many pieces that you could go deeper on and learn more about it, but you stop with just an incomplete portion of the information. Lots of things are incomplete, and we just need to do more research to get the full vantage point of what we desire, what we're looking to do, and all of that. And I know I said that was the last point, but I really want to touch on a final move, and that would be to expand your range. You cannot build freedom with a mind terrified of new information. You cannot build real freedom with a mind terrified of new information. Understanding something does not obligate you to accept it. You can study without submitting. You can investigate without judging. You can listen without agreeing. Trust me, full disclosure, I do it all the time. 90% of the time, I am listening to people, very pleasant, not a combative sense. I'm listening and I'm smiling. And many times, for those who know me well, they know that just because I'm listening and smiling does not mean that I'm agreeing. I am absorbing the information that you're sharing. But 90% of the time, you, most people are providing incorrect information. I can clearly see that it's coming from a place of fear and not substance, or they've done little research on it. So you can listen without agreeing. You can understand another worldview without abandoning yours. You can question your faith without being disrespectful to the Most High God, right? You can study alternative economic models without adopting them. It we really need to pay attention to how we box ourselves out of true liberation and freedom. Challenging modern institutions without assuming everything new and trendy is correct, right? That is discernment. That is the ability to be exposed to new information, to be open to learning new things without worrying that it's going to corrupt every part of you. The person afraid to look at a new idea will never know why they rejected it. You're just doing it as a knee jerk reaction. And that is not freedom. Again, that is a clear sign that the oppressive situations that you were brought up in, or the generational oppressiveness that is around many of us, and many of us were exposed to, or our parents were, and grandparents, and things of that nature, that is clear evidence that it's working. You don't question anything. You move solely with the things that you trust, that you're familiar with. So ask, what have I been afraid to understand? What are you afraid to understand? What and why? Why does looking under the cover, at your big age, you know that the boogeyman doesn't exist, or do you? Maybe that's something you need to explore and question. I'm not sure, but what have I been so afraid to understand that I just take whatever I have, even though it's limited, even though I'm not getting all that I need out of it, even though I know that I lack restoration and reconnection, I'm still just going to go with what's familiar or comfortable. Then ask, who benefits from this fear of my understanding? I know I've said this a few times in this conversation, but it must be reiterated again. Who benefits? Who benefits from my misunderstanding, or the fact that I am so fearful that I refuse to question, I refuse to examine, refuse to explore? Who benefits financially, spiritually, politically, even from a familiar family oriented type place? Even if it's your ego, is your ego simply protecting a position you've defended for so long, you wouldn't even know how to show up looking different? You wouldn't even know how to present yourself saying, hey, y'all, I know I grew up this way, but now I'm doing this. I went through that quite a few times in my life, and it is scary, presents a challenge, and things of that nature. However, if you want true freedom, it requires that you do this, that you step into that. We are going to wrap up today's Money Making Mondays. Um, and I want to give you a win, a checkmate, right? A checkmate. Now we turn to the mirror and we should ask ourselves, is it easy to talk about what systems did, what the government did, what the colonizers did, what slavery did, what religion did, what corporations did, and on and on and on? It's easy, or is it easy? Is it easy for us to just stay having those conversations and never eventually getting to the point where we take ownership for it? We can acknowledge, and we should acknowledge, what certain institutions and certain practices did to us, but eventually we must restore. And restoration requires another question: what are we doing now? Once you know better, you do better. Shout out to my grandfather, rest in peace. Right? When you know better, you do better. What are you building? What are you teaching? What are you owning? What are you documenting? What are you preserving? What are you transferring? What are you creating together with someone else? What land are you keeping? What land are you preserving? What family systems are you creating and documenting? What are our children receiving besides stories about what somebody did to us? Because awareness without construction becomes another form of captivity. You can know everything about the cage and still live in it. And many of us do. Many of us are very aware of systematic this, and generational this, and spirituality this, and so on and so on and so on. You can name every bar, explain who built it, the date it was constructed, hold conferences about it, write books about it, argue about it online, and never walk towards the door. You know your cage. You know your those who have had you in captivity. You know all about that, but that is not restoration. That is sophisticated captivity. And I don't know about you, but checkmate, I'm out. You can stay in the bars of captivity if you want with your old thinking, with your old ideas, with your fear and all of that. But Madam CEO, on every Monday and on many other of the platforms that I share, will give you opportunities to make a move and to explore and to experience true freedom and to win. But first, we must question everything. So make your move. This week, I want you to choose one belief that strongly has shaped your life. It could be money, business, education, religion, success, culture, history. Finish the sentence with I believe blank, whatever that is, because of blank. Then remove the answer that amounts to my parents said, my church taught me, I was told, my community believes, especially if you don't even know where the belief came from. But work through that and then see what remains. Then spend at least an hour studying the strongest evidence that challenges that belief. Be in a safe be in a safe space. When I first started doing these types of exercises, being in my bedroom or comfortably positioned in my den or things of that nature, on a beach or something like that, but a place that I felt safe so that I could really explore who taught me that. Who taught me that that was crazy? Who told me that that was dangerous? And as you begin to examine for yourself and explore for yourself, I am excited already for where that journey will lead you, what you will learn along the way, and most importantly, the different experience you'll have from carrying a belief that someone just gave you, which is technically kind of a burden, as opposed to capturing or holding a new idea or new belief in even if it's the similar to what you were given, but capturing and obtaining a belief based on your own thorough research and exploration of that. Information changes nothing until someone makes a move, right? So I want you all to build strategically. And if you're looking for that, you can follow us or reach out to us at the Brunson Approach. Or if you're looking to restore spiritually, we're at Generations of Wealth Church. Question deeper. My name is Madam CEO. It has been a pleasure to have this conversation with you all. I look forward to growing, learning, and most importantly, restoring and reconnecting to the Most High with you all. You all have a great Monday, and I'll see you next Money Making Mondays.